My name is Mogens Bjerregaard, working as an international advisor. Was a former president of the European Federation of Journalists and have been invited to moderate this session today. I'm very honored to have that possibility to moderate for you today in this topic: media freedom and editorial independence in the EU. We are a bit lack of time now, so let's move quickly. Finally, media is on the EU radar with high priority, and what we are talking about today is about safety. It's fighting disinformation, media viability, and the European Media Freedom Act that we are expecting during the autumn. And we are going to address those issues today. We have 1 hour, 1 full hour for a debate. I'm not sure if we have 5 minutes more after 11, but that's up to the organizers to judge. We will divide the webinar in two. We will first have a discussion with the panel, 25 minutes, and then 25 minutes with you, the audience. So please, if you have questions, write them in the chat box, and I'll try to bring as many as possible for the panelists. But let's use the time we've got. We have the big topics that I mentioned, and we have 5 panelists now to address them. And I'll ask you to give short answers on the questions. Close my window here. So our 5 panelists are Aurélie Champagne, Culture, Audiovisuel and Copyright Counselor for the French Permanent Representation. Lucy Pliknerova, Audiovisual Attaché for the Czech Permanent Representation. David Eck, Culture, Media and Sports Counselor from the Swedish Permanent Representation. Ramona Strogario, Member of the European Parliament, Member of the Libra Committee and Co-Chair of the Media Working Group in the European Parliament, and Wout van Beek, Director of News Media Europe. Welcome to all of you. And let's go straight on to the first question, which is about safety. Recommendations on safety of journalists. Unfortunately, during the last years, journalists are targeted and even killed also in the EU. It's obviously that and timely that EU finally will address this. Ramona Strogario, you have been very vocal in the parliaments about media freedom and always ready to be in debates on it. Will the member states be more committed to the recommendations from the EU? Will it help? Will it matter that the EU has this on its agenda now?
Good morning, and thank you very much for the invitation. Well, as we all know, recommendations are not binding, of course, and then also the competences of the Union in the field of media freedom are quite limited. But we've been trying to find solutions to what is happening in the media scenery, and particularly related to the safety of the journalists, for a long time. What is very good about recommendations is, first of all, that they are setting standards. Quite high standards, and that the member states need to then look seriously at those standards and work with the Commission in order to implement them. Of course, some of the member states will be less reluctant, and some of the member states will be more reluctant in setting these standards and implementing these recommendations. But then, at the end of the day, those who actually implemented them and who actually followed the recommendations of the Commission can already set a different model and can already show the others that things can be done, that they do have results, and that we can literally have a better protection of the journalists if member states cooperate. You know, the Union is not living in Brussels. The Union is all of these member states, and then we have 18 months, and the member states have 18 months to report back to the Commission on how they implemented these recommendations. I know that also in my country, the government and the authorities work together in actually issuing these sets of recommendations with the Commission, and this already means more commitment and more involvement. So we will see at the end of the day whether they work or not. Of course, we need more binding legislation, but it is a very good step forward.
When it comes to this new recommendations from the EU, I mean, we have already the EU plan of action. We have already recommendations from the Council of Europe. And when David Egg is joining, I would really like to ask him what the difference will be here, because in a country like Sweden, they already have implemented the UN plan of action, for instance. In the Netherlands, they have followed the recommendations from the Council of Europe. So this is something extra. Aurélie Champagne, during the French presidency, have you achieved what you want here? Will this difference make something for journalists and for the media?
Oh, well, thank you for the question. It's great to be here, and it's great to be able to report on what we did for the last 6 months. And let there be no cliffhanger here. We did achieve what we wanted to with the adoptions of the conclusions on the protection and safety of journalists, which are both a follow-up to what the European Commission had put forward in September with the recommendation, and also a reaction of Council to the war in Ukraine and how it has changed the face of fighting against all attacks against journalists. And now what they are going to change in a concrete manner is maybe a closer cooperation on fighting attacks between all parties involved, all stakeholders, better training also for relevant authorities, notably from police and authorities in justice, etc.
So the training, will that mean that the police, the judges will know much better how to protect journalists?
Well, that is the objective of it. That is a commitment of member states, yes. And then there is also the question of journalists working in armed conflicts and journalists coming back from countries such as Ukraine, Russia, and Belarus, which need to be welcomed in the EU and be accompanied to resume their activity.
So it's about that trauma also that we are talking about here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now it's France. It's still France today, but tomorrow, Lucy Pliknerova, it is Czechia who is has the presidency. So what will the main issue be for you now? What will the follow-up be for Czechia on this topic?
Thank you for inviting me. It's a great pleasure to be here and discuss this very important issues with you today. I would like to say that Czech Republic will continue a discussion on anti-slaps directive. The whole package is very important right now, and the light is put on it, especially in light of several events in our middle and eastern European part. It was groundbreaking in a very negative way event when Jan Kuciak was killed, and it had a huge impact on this topic, and impression that it's very important to have some discussion on it and to put the topic forward. And I would like to say, even now during the war in Ukraine, we also see that, as already mentioned, there are Ukrainian journalists, there are Russian, Belarusian journalists who are against the regime, and it's important to focus on sustainability of their work, sustainability of media work in Ukraine as a whole. Of course, it will be a very essential topic for us right now.
Thank you. I have one more. David Egg, is David Egg on board?
Not yet.
David Egg is still not on board? Nope. Okay, so just very brief about, do you see that this safety topic from the EU, this new approach, will that make a difference?
Well, I think, Mogens, and thanks for the question. I think for meaningful change to happen and to improve the safety of media professionals, we still have quite the road to travel. So the anti-SLAPP proposal, the recommendations, the conclusions, they're an extremely important steps in this direction, but they now need to translate into concrete actions. I also think that there needs to be more societal awareness about the role of reporters, journalists, editors, anyone who contributes to the media and reporting on what happens in society, basically. So I think that for us, what's going to be very important is the first half of 2023, when the member states start reporting on what they have concretely done to implement the recommendations. And I hope that we can count on the Commission and the Parliament to put pressure on the member states to deliver on this.
So this is the follow-up now. It's to be very, very strict looking at what happens in each of the country on this topic from now on. Thank you very much. We are running fast because we have so many big topics. So and for the audience, you have very good possibilities to follow up with questions here. So please do that. The second topic is about disinformation, and I would like to start with you out because this is one of the tricky points. First of all, can or should politicians draw the lines between facts and fakes? And how can we be sure that the principle of arm's length is respected?
That's of course a very tricky question. I do not believe that politicians are well equipped to make those decisions. Neither are the platforms, by the way. I believe that the best tool that we have against disinformation is a pluralistic, independent, and professionally skilled press. And of course, there's some mistakes that creep in, as everywhere where work is being done by people. But it's also part of the role of the press to correct these mistakes and to continue to endlessly seek for the truth. And I think here that effective self-regulation is key. So we should let the press do what we're good at, basically, without interference from governments or commercial players, as I believe this will erode the trust between citizens and newsrooms.
Aurélie, can we make sure that platforms meet the challenges that we are talking about here? And what will the impact of the code on European press be?
Well, I mean, like the code has been recently reshuffled in order to better address problems about disinformation online. And I mean, like it was reshuffled because it was considered insufficient in order to fight against disinformation. And there are two things I wanted to pinpoint. First is that there are key improvements in it, notably that the advertising industry joined, which will help fighting against the monetization of disinformation. And another important point is like the enhanced cooperation between platforms and fact checkers. Then whether they will meet the challenge, well, I mean, like the new adaptation entered into force like 2 weeks ago, so maybe it's a bit early to say, but as you know, the code is now one of the tools that may be used by platforms in order to implement what the Digital Services Act has put as obligations on them. And in that perspective, I'm sure that they will be even more willing and engaged in order to meet the challenge, and that the European Commission also will be very much looking into that and to follow closely on whether they do or not.
Is there a risk that this mechanism could be used to silence critical journalism?
Well, I believe that the code of disinformation has moved from a self-regulation only to a co-regulatory principle, but there have been checks and balances. I mean, throughout the DSA, there has been a careful balance between all of these liberties. And I mean, like countering disinformation and countering propaganda, it's all about striking the right balance between freedom and public interests. And here we're talking about balancing freedom of expression and public order. And well, I must say that we are happy with what we achieved together with Parliament.
So, if to you, Lucy Priknerova, that you are in charge from tomorrow, can you safeguard us, telling us that the self-regulation will be the mean to use here, and that the politician will not make it in a way so we risk silencing critical journalism by using this mechanism.
We see self-regulation and those principles regarding self-regulatory aspects and co-regulation as very important today, because as you see, there might be some harmful content, there might be illegal content, but the border content, the content itself, and that responsibility of those who actually created the content and platforms, it's essential, because there are some like blind spots in the content which we cannot regulate, and it wouldn't be good to regulate, because there is a freedom of expression, and in this case self-regulation plays essential role. So we very follow and observe the new code, and it's good that there's the demonetization of disinformation, and also the principle of transparency, which is also essential, because when you have transparency regarding, for example, political advertising, and when you have better labeling, it all can contribute to more trustworthy like environment.
Sorry to interrupt you, but you are supporting the self-regulatory mechanism, and there are countries in Europe where you don't have the self-regulatory mechanism at the moment. In your countries, for instance, so would there be some instruments to use so we can promote self-regulatory bodies also in countries where they don't exist today?
When we see in the code, it was very like essential that the 34 signatories and the quite big, some of them are influential in all countries of the EU. So it's like this, that there are global players which are influenced by this, and of course targeting those smaller actors will be all the time more difficult, and we should discuss how to strengthen it in the future. But also all the time the freedom of expression is a very valuable principle by many and by all member states, I would say. But you know, we have to observe this balance, as already mentioned. It's about check and balances.
Thank you. Ramona, do you feel safe about all this as a parliamentarian?
Do I feel safe as a parliamentarian, or do I feel safe as a politician? I think as a parliamentarian, the role of all of us is to make better regulations and to ensure that if we commit to it, we really have to have a good plan put together in order to better protect journalists and to create a pluralistic environment for the media. And the reality is that this is a really complicated and complex process, and you know, you always have to use all kinds of instruments, some of them almost surgically, in order to get to better results and to have better results. So the question, I think, is rather not if I feel safe or comfortable with all of these things, but if in the end we have results, and then we have, you know, starting to implement them, use recommendations, push on simple, clear regulation as well, and then see what is actually functioning and what is not functioning.
Thank you very much, and welcome to David Ek from the Swedish representation coming on board here. Good to see you, David. I don't know how much you have been listening, how long time you have been on here. So maybe I should just leave you for a minute and then come back to you. Some more questions. We are still running fast because we have all those 4 topics. So just go to the media viability, the media action plan. And I could stay with you, Ramona. Can we leave the development of media and good journalism to the free market, or do we need more support and funds for journalism? And then I'll go to David after this.
You know, I've always been an advocate for more support, and especially for direct EU support, always through independently administered grants to journalists and media professionals. And I will briefly explain why, because I'm also a supporter of the free market, and I perfectly understand the need for a free market. But the market for media a particular one, I would say. First of all, we have pressure coming from several levels. Then we have, all kinds of media actors. We have state-owned media, we have big private media conglomerates. Some of these conglomerates are controlled by oligarchs. We have small and medium enterprises and media platforms. We have freelancers, we have local media, we have national media. Well, this is a diversity that calls for, I think, tailor-made solutions. And basically, the truth is that small media enterprises, the local journalists, the freelancers, those independent investigative journalists are the most vulnerable ones. And this type of media landscape does need funding and is depending on funding. And I know from even the pilot projects that I contributed to, for example, for investigative journalists, that some small project was able to support investigative platforms, independent investigative platforms in their activity for a year or two. And that we were talking about like 2 million euros, not more. But this was crucial for a lot of investigative platforms in Europe.
So yes to funding media also from the state level. I'm coming from a country myself
rather easy level through dedicated funding, and then very carefully operate with the transparency at state level and ownership and all of these crucial issues to preserve independence of the media.
We will come back to that. Thank you very much. As I said, I also come from a country with a small language where we actually have public media support and where it is working. David, Sweden, you also have had public media support for many years in Sweden. We have different approaches in Europe because we have different situations. But during the Corona crisis, we have seen more support. Has that helped us to deliver more support for media?
Thank you very much for the question. And first of all, of course, very sorry for the major IT breakdown. I'm very happy to be here, and thank you very much for the invitation. Yes, I think in Sweden there was a specific COVID support to the media in addition to the general support, because our media support and press support has been around for about half a century now. So we knew, of course, already before that it's important to support the media. But with COVID, we had extra support for editorial work. And we think also state aid-wise that the dialogue with the Commission was very smooth and constructive as regards to state aid. So we were very thankful for that. But we also saw during the pandemic, I think, the importance of investigative journalism. We saw that many decisions had to be taken very quickly and with great uncertainty. So this scrutinizing power of journalism was very important, also on the local level, because many things happen on the local level. And we also have specific support for local journalism as well in less covered geographical areas as well. So I think we learned something, but to build on what we already had.
Let's stay on the local journalism for a while. And I will jump to you, Lucy. Looking at your country in Czechia, you have big challenges when it comes to local media. Would a media support system, as we know it from some of the Nordic countries, would that be helpful for the media in Czechia? Simply to support local media more.
As you mentioned very well, we don't have any general framework for support of media. We have some, but we have some targeted support, for example, or regarding national minorities, like language minorities, like subsidy for language minorities and media of which use language of minority. So this is like subsidy program. However, we of course look at foreign countries to their schemes and to discuss what would be helpful for us, but so far we don't have any general support.
And would that be good progress for many European countries to look more into state support?
We try to look, especially after COVID, what would be helpful for us and what not. But as you mentioned, for example, for local media, it can be very distressing in those times when there is a huge competition. But we also believe that, like, for example, digitalization brought up some opportunities to like benefit from this market. But as you mentioned, it can be very tough position. For example, for press media, it can be especially very tough today, and we are reflecting it, and we think what next steps we should do to actually make the situation better.
Thank you. We'll jump to the fourth point because we are running out of time. And I'll go straight to you, Aurélie Champagne, when it comes to the Media Freedom Act, the last day of the French presidency. What is your expectations now from this? Because we haven't seen it, we haven't seen the final act, what will it be, but it must have been prepared a lot. So what are your expectations?
Okay, so we haven't seen it as well. So I'm going to be a little bit short to give you a straightforward answer. We know that the European Commission is thinking on transparency measures on both capital detention and state expenses. It is also thinking about opinions given by an independent body whenever a market transaction may have an impact on media pluralism. But now, as a presidency, I am confident that we will have a fascinating debate, but I don't have a position from member states to report on, because we have been waiting for the European Commission to deliver the proposal and we haven't been able to debate it yet. However, maybe if I could broaden the perspective a little bit, at the end of the Slovenian presidency, we had a discussion within the frame of the Audiovisual and Media Working Party about what could be useful to ensure freedom of expression and media pluralism. And what was raised in it are two things which we referred to a bit, which is funding mechanism and reinforcing them for the media, and media literacy measures. And on funding, as you may have seen in the conclusions we just adopted, we call for both a reinforcement of funding to investigative and independent journalism, and also we ask the European Commission to make more long-term and extensive the pilot projects and preparatory actions which were funded by the European Parliament and which were really useful. And I'll stop here.
Okay, thank you very much, David Eck. What would you see from a Swedish perspective? From what would be useful here for the European Media Freedom Act?
Well, of course, I mean, we are deeply committed to the issue of media freedom, and it's been with great interest that we looked into the consultations, for example. So for us to see what would be useful, it's of course very good to read all the position papers and to also to speak with all the stakeholders in events such as this one. So thank you very much once again for that one, in order to get a good picture. But of course, we don't know exactly what will be the suggestion or what the negotiations will look like. But it is important then that many different stakeholders can have their say, because, as you know, the national systems differ quite a lot depending on market sizes, linguistic differences, and so on. We of course know the Commission is very well aware of this, and also the regulatory diversity. And with all the input they're getting, we're sure that a good proposal that would be interesting to negotiate will come out in some time from now.
Okay, thank you, Ramona. You have been looking at the transparency. Would this be one of the key topics here, transparency in media?
Well, it is always one of the key topics, transparency in ownership, and transparency also in the funding. If we discuss about the state financing and the state funding that was mentioned several times during today's discussions, that's a prerequisite in my opinion, and we truly have to look at it because we've seen the devastating effects that this had also during the pandemic, where media outlets were invaded with amounts from the state the reasoning that they are doing all kinds of campaigns to make people aware about the pandemic, but then in the end the intention was rather to keep them silent about different actions or inactions of the government and so on. So yes, this is a keyword for basically everything that is happening in the field of media freedom and media financing. But then, we need to discuss about other things, about the market concentration, about its effects, about how we can use the tools that we have surgically, including to the Media Freedom Act, so that we can address these issues, and also look at conglomerates in different ways. First of all, as a potential actor in seriously distorting the market. And here I do have in mind, of course, PKN Orlen and Polska Press and so on, but also as a possibility for smaller actors to get together and survive on the market. This is another important thing that we need to look at.
So just to interrupt you, you mentioned Poland. So the local regional media in Poland, this is now owned by the oil company. This is something that you should be addressed during the should be addressed by the European Media Freedom Act. That's what you're saying. Yes. Okay.
Yes. This is what I couldn't hear your final word.
It was this on. Yeah. I just tried to
because the most relevant example that I have in mind is the acquisition of Polska Press basically by PKN Orlen and PKN Orlen. And then, on the one hand, we could argue that in this case, the media conglomerate only changed owners, and therefore we have the same level of concentration in the market. But then we see the practical aspects of the transaction and the effects that it has. Basically, it is making the state a more dominant and powerful actor on the media
market. That would be very interesting.
And they're replacing uncomfortable editors-in-chief. There were some decisions there that were extremely controversial and which are not doing any good to the media freedom.
And that will be very interesting to see how the European Media Freedom Act will change on situations like that, like we have seen in Poland, if they really will make these changes. Well, the final question, then we'll give the floor to the audience. The final question to you is, because now we talked about the transparency in media, are the media ready to deliver this transparency in the ownership?
Well, I think transparency is extremely important in media as such. I think journalism and transparency go hand in hand. I think what we do need to do is make sure that the AVMS rules, for instance, should be applied and ensure that is enforced. And I also think that we should sort of extend transparency requirements not only to the press sector, but also throughout the entire ecosystem, including tech. And in this sense, I would have liked the code of practice on disinformation to be a little bit stronger. I mean, we cannot deny the fact that media freedom is under pressure in Europe, even though some parts of Europe rank very highly globally when it comes to media freedom. So the question then is, how do we go about it? And so I think that the Media Freedom Act should target problematic markets and leave healthy ones untouched. And this is why I don't think that a regulation would be the right instrument in that respect.
I don't think we're talking about regulation here. We're not talking about regulations. I think we are more talking about the transparency and ownership. Would that be a problem for you?
No, but like, as I said, professional media, Mogans, transparency is ingrained in what we do. I do not think we need additional rules on this mandated by the MFA, because it would completely undermine sort of the cultural specificities of media markets. We should fix the problems at the local level, but leave perfectly healthy markets untouched.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for this discussion within you in the panel. We didn't reach everything, but we go now to the audience. I've got already 3 questions coming in from the audience, and again try to answer short. We have 20 minutes left. I don't know if we go a bit beyond because we started late. The first questions come from Matteo Panizzati, and this is a question to everyone. All the questions are to everyone. And how should the EMFA complement the Digital Service Act and code regarding platform obligations, or are they sufficient? He is asking. Who would try to answer that? Maybe the new presidency in Czechia.
Regarding European Media Freedom Act, I haven't seen the draft either.
No,
so
okay, that's
both,
a problem.
all of them are in the same boat, but I was assured by the Commission that it should be synergical to DSA, that they think about the DSA and the tough process that it was negotiated very recently. So I'm pretty sure that it's really in mind of those who prepare MFA. And I would directly maybe answer one question which is pointed out to Czech presidency, as I see in the chat, and it's also on the issue of media freedom. And it's regarding Czech priorities, Czech program, and there is a question that it used to be the Czech huge priority, that media freedom. I would say it still is. It's in the priority which is dedicated to resilience of democratic institutions. There is the independence of mass media, and also in international context, to support capacity to strengthen independence of media. The only one thing which is now very important for us is the work of European Commission as we wait for the draft proposal. So we are fully prepared to open the issue once it's published, when it's approved by the collegium of the College of the European Commission. So once it's approved, we will put it on the table, and of course the issue is still one of our priorities.
There's one. You also answered the question asked by Lucy Sikorova here, but she has a question in the end of it. Does the team consider to get in touch with the representatives of independent media as well? I think this is a question: who are you cooperating with here? So the represents independent media. Will they be taken on board here when you are? I think this is the question.
I can say that recently, last I would say 2 or 3 months, most of our work is in meeting with all actors which are involved and can be involved in and are interested in media regulation. So it's all the variety of stakeholders is very broad. And there is no reason to exclude someone. So of course we are glad for view of all actors from the media market.
So, and that I suppose this does not only about Czechia, it's about all countries. So if somebody don't feel them included, they can be included just to ask for it. Thank you very much. The questions about the EMA, we don't know what the EMA will be, but we might know what should be complemented to the DSA. So maybe David Egg, you could answer a bit on that.
Well, on these issues, we know that representatives of editorial media mention, of course, that they have been checked already once as for their content in their respective systems, and that they do not feel that they should be, so to say, checked once again by the platforms. We also know that the DSA was meant to be a horizontal instrument, and that the Media Freedom Act is more specific. So I don't know if the Commission is looking into this, but I understand the line of thought.
Okay. And there's a question from Irene Olmi. Could the European Media Freedom Act contain a clause similar to the DSA's hotly debated media exemption provision? Maybe Aurélie, you could have some reflections on that.
Sorry, I wasn't sure it was addressed to me. Could it contain? Well, I'm sorry, I don't know.
No, but maybe some of the other panelists have. I also see it's quite a difficult question. Yeah.
Well, if I may, Mogans, let's take it out of the narrative around media exemptions. I think that's very important that the integrity of editorial content is protected online as it is offline, and anything that goes in the direction of the protection of this integrity of journalism, I would very much welcome.
Let me just briefly add that I'm in a few minutes actually running to this discussion with Commissioner Jourova around topics of media freedom, disinformation, also the upcoming Media Freedom Act, well, to a certain extent, because it's a joint debate with several committees. And one of my questions will be related to this kind of issues, and particularly on how we look at independence of the editorial content, how we look on the relationship with the platforms, the system with the flagging trusted content or not, and how exactly does this work in agreement with the independence of the media and of the editorial content and so on. So these are not simple questions, but some of them I will be addressing in a few minutes to the Commissioner as well, and then of course we will all work together for these proposals. This is my expectation also from the upcoming presidency, from those with a focus on these files, from the organizations, the media organizations, the civil society, that we are able to basically work together and make this joint effort in better to find the best answers to these questions.
Thank you. There are not that many questions from the audience, so please, if you have some questions, go ahead. There's one here coming straight away. Ramona, do you think that Libra will have the lead on the Media Freedom Act? That was a direct question to you.
We at this point we don't know. It should. Let's see.
Okay. That's one thing that when listening to you about the very important thing about the media freedom, that EU is now supporting independent journalism, the independency. I mean, you underline it, all of you. We hear so much about it. One of the instruments is the self-regulation. We just touched upon it. We know that in several countries there are no real self-regulation existing, in particular in the Central Eastern Europe. How can EU help on this topic? How can EU help this this infrastructure to be set in, to be a part of all European countries? Will there be financial support for making this, or how can we make it? Yeah.
I think you're touching on a very important issue here, and I think that, look, I cannot speak for the European Commission, but if I would like and ask the European Commission indeed to play a very active role in bringing sort of the best practices from other member states into member states where these self-regulatory processes are not available yet. If I look at my own membership, for instance, publishers throughout the EU, even within my membership, I see a lot of sort of cross-fertilization, and people are very keen to share what works in their national environments. And I think that we could do more of that, both from sort of a public policy point of view as from an industry point of view.
There have been a project on this on the self-regulation. The organizations I have been representing myself, the European Federation of Journalists, have been in lead of now I think the third year on this topic, trying to push for more self-regulation. So using the results of those 3 years, would that be something for the new presidency to do that and really make a step forward here?
Thank you for this question. It's very important because we also, I discussed it several days with our colleagues, and especially about the self-regulation, because we have the conference in Prague in July where and part of it will be dedicated to self-regulation and co-regulatory mechanisms. So I'm pretty sure there will be some room for it, even because it's open to experts and to some stakeholders as well. So I believe it's not going to be the discussion limited to the platform where only member states are. But on the other hand, I see it as very essential, like one of the topics which would be very essential to follow. We don't know yet in which form it can be discussed, but we are pretty sure that it will be on that July conference. And then like our main aim for the future was the Media Freedom Act and discussion on it. So those issues are opened. We will of course follow some news from implementation of audiovisual media action plan. We will see if there will be some new steps from the Commission to actually put forward on the table and to discuss among member states. But it will be as well like it's on the side of Commission how they will put some progress in this implementation of the document we see as very essential for this field. So right now it's a quite open issue.
David Egg, I would like to ask you, coming from Sweden, do you see big possibilities here for making progress?
Well, I mean, of course, in Sweden, self-regulation is really a cornerstone in the media system, and very important, and with long traditions. We see, for example, that the Commission has this call out now on press and media councils, for example, in Europe. So there are things going on from the Commission that we could, of course, follow up in appropriate ways as well during the presidency. And we'll see as well. Once again, we don't know about the European Media Freedom Act if this will be relevant also there.
A last question from here, because I just have to be sure if you have to wrap up now at sharp 11. So the last question will be about SLAPP, because you mentioned, some of you mentioned the SLAPP also. It has, I think everybody have welcomed that there is this anti-SLAPP initiative from the Commission. Now the recommendation, we are waiting for the directive. But what is most criticized within the SLAPP is that it is cross-border. It is a cross-border approach, and not what really happens inside the single country, the single countries. Would it be possible to solve this problem better than in what has proposed until now? I mean, we can use the recommendation. That's great, but we also need really to address all the issues. I've heard that only 10% of the SLAPP cases will be addressed due to the directive. Maybe Aurélie, you can say something about that. You have been on the president here.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to give you a very short answer. I believe that the choice that was made by the European Commission in that regard is a choice which was like mainly done because of the architecture of the treaty, and that if you don't have a cross-border element, then you're a bit stuck because you can't go on, otherwise you would be infringing on the treaty, and of course we wouldn't want to infringe on the treaty when we are trying to fight for something which is related to the rule of law. I have to say I didn't follow closely the negotiation, which is held in justice committees. So I don't know whether there has been reactions of the member state on it. But I guess it is a first step.
Okay. Maybe just from you mentioned, Lucy, also the SLAP. Can we get closer to these solutions without infringement, or maybe even say, well, there will be some infringement because of this?
I also don't follow this in the working party, so I don't have any like details, but I would add something to what already said regarding that approach, that approach of package and approach of some dividing the issue into documents accordingly to what treaties enable to the Commission to do is quite interesting way to actually attain something and to still follow the role of the Commission. So I would say that it's about discussion between Commission and the Council and what can be done in the field. So I see it as right now as some form of expression from the Commission, which also would like to put on the table instruments which are appropriate.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we are at the end of the discussion. Just to wrap up a few things here in the end. We have regarding the safety, we need to follow very closely what's going to happen with the safety issue after the EU approach to this. There are some work on the follow-up on it. Do the member states do what the EU expects from them? If not, how can we deal with that? We just discussed the SLAP. I also noticed that media and information literacy was mentioned when we talk about this. Disinformation, to make sure that the media freedom is not that we keep the media freedom, that it should correspond with media freedom, that EU should not advise journalists and information about the disinformation. There should be freedom here. And about the media viability, we talked a lot about the financing of media, that there should be better possibilities for state funding of media, but also transparency on it and the principle of arm's length. We just discussed the transparency. I think that would be a big issue. Transparency in the ownership, transparency on funding of media. The issue about how the state intervened by owning the media, as we see it in Poland, the recent take where Poland got their own oil company to buy up a lot of local media. And then there's the self-regulatory topic that we should deal with. I can see the time is 11 sharp, so I want to thank you all, and sorry that you haven't got all the chances to answer all questions, because we were really through tour de force for big topics. I think it was really so. Thanks a lot for being patient with me during this seminar. Thank you very much, and you have a lot of work in front of you, News Media Europe. Great that you made such a webinar. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And thanks to all the panelists.
Thank you very much.
News Media, Ramona and Wout.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Okay.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.